Hi, everybody, and welcome to NA Lit Chat. This is the New Adult Lit Chat where we talk about all the things that involve new adult literature. That's a category of books and stories that usually feature characters between the ages of 18 and 25 or 26. Takes place in, around, maybe in college, maybe just that time of life, but it usually involves a whole lot of drama, and that's what we love about it. It is Thursday, December 4th, 2014. If any of you guys out there are feeling the way I am, December has just absolutely snuck up on me. I'm excited for the holidays and for the cold time of the year, but I also cannot believe that 2014 is almost over. And since we are hearing that from so many of you, we decided to do something really special. Well, I hope you'll think it's really special. For December, we're going to look at planning next year. But we're going to tackle it in a couple different ways. Tonight we are going to tackle dream planning with Janet Wallace. Janet Wallace is the founder of Social Deviance, which is a social marketing and branding company that actually helps you go beyond your messaging and into your dreams. She is also the founder of Utopia, which is a great book con in Nashville every year that I know you guys have heard me talk about before. And because of these two sets of experiences and the clients that she's worked with, Janet has a really amazing understanding of authors, our business, and what we need to really take it to the next level. Janet, I'm so glad that you're able to come and join us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy and EJ, ST. I appreciate it very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Well, we're going to talk about dream planning tonight, and that's a phrase that I've heard from you. I've heard it a little bit online. It's something that really resonates with me. What does that phrase mean to you, and why do you think it's so important?
Well, you know that there's that poster meme that goes around that says, "Don't quit your daydream."
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's it's one of my favorites, and it's sort of the mind, body, spirit. You know, we're made up of the mind, body, and spirit of our health and well-being. It's the same with dream planning. You can't have the action without the passion and the vision of what you want the action to achieve. You know, what the ultimate goal is, and so that's really what dream planning is all about.
So it's sort of like taking your biggest wishes and putting them into action plans.
Correct.
Awesome. I think that's really
I mean,
exciting.
there's a whole lot more to it, but yes, in a nutshell, that is. Yes.
Well, let's hear what's more to it, because we're gonna hopefully help people make their own dream plans up after we talk through tonight and some of the kinds of things that authors especially need to pay attention to.
Well, I mean, the first thing when we're talking about achieving your dreams is, first of all, knowing what it is you want and giving yourself permission to want that. I call it making peace with your desires. You wouldn't, it's really funny how many people really feel guilty for wanting their dreams and for wanting to claim what they want. They feel that if they go after their dreams, or if they go after a new dream, then someone else in their family may have to wait or may suffer, or that they won't be able to, and so they feel really guilty. You especially see this among women, where they put themselves second a lot of the times. So you really, really, the very first step is knowing what you want and claiming it and taking ownership of it. So you really have to make peace with your desire and understand that the reason you're given your desires is because you have the ability to achieve them.
I love that idea. It's kind of like, I have a lot of friends who sort of apologize and are embarrassed because they want to be the next J.K. Rowling or Nora Roberts or whichever of these like huge global superstar authors you can dream about, and they're like, they feel kind of like, well, gosh, is that really okay to want it? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Really claiming that instead of feeling like, oh God, I don't want to tell anybody because this might sound either braggy or crazy or whatever that feeling is that's holding you back.
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of reasons why people don't claim and own their desires. From fear, just flat out fear, to guilt, to shyness and being uncomfortable and not being used to it. Sometimes you can see the difference in status in classes where you see people who are raised in an upper middle class or even wealthy family, they're able to achieve things faster than maybe people who struggled the whole time. It's not because anyone's smarter than someone else. It's because it's sort of, you don't know any better. Like the people who are in the upper crust expect that kind of lifestyle. They expect it. And when you don't expect it and when you don't live into that space and when you're not used to it, you don't know what it feels like. And so it's hard to take those first steps sometimes. But the most important first step is knowing what you want and making peace with wanting it. And then the second step would be, why do you want it? Understanding why you want it. And so I always direct all my clients to write a personal manifesto stating their beliefs. So,
I took a class with Janet last summer, and I got a chance to write that, and it really did help clarify not only what I wanted, but where I wanted to spend my time. So if you guys out there haven't sat down and really taken a few minutes to write down not just what your dreams are, but like why they're important to you, and all those, I think, kind of like tangential pieces that they draw into, that can be really critical. I know that some of the writers that I was working with in that class, they managed to sort of drill down to the idea that not only did they want to write, but they really wanted to inspire women, or they really wanted to inspire adventure. And these were key differences that got people really excited.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, you've got to understand, you've got to, I always tell everybody, if you want to stand out, you have to stand up for something. You know, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. That's really the thing. When you believe in something and when you create a platform based on your beliefs, that's when you really start standing out. And that's when people start noticing that you actually stand for something and what you're all about. You know, I mean, that's why political parties use platforms with manifestos. That's why, you know, the founding fathers of our country wrote the Declaration of Independence. I mean, that's a manifesto. You know, it's a very powerful way to really get to that second step and really get to the heart of why you want what you want.
Right. And we're going to come back to that manifesto later too, because that affects a lot of how you can spend your time, and as crazy as it sounds, that can be the key to marketing, which can be the key to sales.
Well, and just what Janet just said there, like I'm just listening along, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of like that line between where you become just like an author or writer and you become a brand. Like when you when you have an identity, you stand for something, like, and people identify you with that. Well, then you become something more than just, you know, a guy that's putting books out there or whatever. We had some good news out there, Amy.
Awesome. Those are people who are a step closer to dream planning, I think.
Right.
Excited to hear it.
Alicia Cat Van Sil, one of our very own Lit Chat crew, said that her good news is that she's giving away signed copies of her best-selling novella series at catgirlstudios.com. So go check that out, and you might win a signed copy. D.A. Boda's good news, and this is really great news for everybody in the NA Lit Chat community, because it's just for us. He just finished his NA fantasy series, The Elysian Chronicles, and he is giving away tonight only free copies on Amazon. You can go download a copy of all 4 books in the series. So DA's a really special part of our chat community, and he wanted to kind of give back to that, and so this is kind of his way of saying thank you to that. So please, everybody, if you're listening or out there in the Twitterverse, go download a copy of each of those books. It's a great series. Deidre Spark says, "Hi guys, I kindled a sassy and sexy new adult Christmas novella. Comes out Tuesday." Deidre's a regular around here, and I love that title too. That's cool. Kindle. Good news. February Grace says, "Thanks to a new relationship between Booktrope and Amazon, my Of Stardust ebook will be reissued by Amazon Publishing." That's fantastic. February says she's got a deal with Amazon Publishing. That's cool. February is like she's really big over on Wattpad and such, so she's parlaying that into a lot of different kinds of success, I see. And then we asked the question, why do you write to inspire others, to inspire for money or others? The answers are Casey Bond. Author says, because I love it. That's why she writes. And Amelia Dillon says, I write because I love it, but of course I want to make a living too. That's the dream. So.
Why do you write, EJ?
Why do I write?
Yes.
It's a creative outlet is what it started as for me. I mean, my big dream, would be to make a living writing.
All right. Well, then I wanted take this a little bit deeper then, because what I want to be a writer is great, and I want to make a living is great, and I love seeing those things, and that's a good start. But you want to get as specific as you can with the vision, with the actual dream. How much of a living? What does making a living look like to you? And what kind of writer do you want to be? Get as absolutely specific as you can get. I want to be the next Stephenie Meyer and have a worldwide phenomenon franchise and action figures and panty lines and sex toys, and now I'm E.L. James, but you see what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's getting really specific. I want to live on 30 acres in a house on a ranch in Montana with cows and whatever. I want my kids to go to private school. You got to get specific about the dream. Absolutely as specific as you get, because what happens is then it really becomes real and you feel it inside there, and you can start writing down, well, how much does that cost? Because then you can start getting into the dollars and cents of it all. And you don't have to be the next E.L. James or Stephenie Meyer. Maybe to you, success and the dream is to just supplement your income so you can work at home in your pajamas and eat chocolate bonbons all day. Hey, that is phenomenal. And that's fine too. And that's why there's so many different levels of success and there's so much room for all of us. So you've got to get specific. Know what get clear on your desires, but be really specific about what that is. There's another. I saw another poster out there. Ryan Blair, one of my faves, he posted it, and it's, if you don't know where you want to be 5 years from now, you're already there.
Oh, that's really kind of
and
scary.
that's a punch.
That's depressing and awesome at the same time.
It
well,
is.
It should light a fire in your ass if it makes you think, and that's
right.
what you got to get clear on. Got to know exactly what does it look like, what does it feel like, what kind of bathtub do you have, what's the view out the window, what are you doing from 9 to 5. Write out your ideal day. What does that day look like? Write out your ideal week. What kind of groceries are you buying? Are they organic? Is it a farmer's market? Are you buying processed canned goods? What does that look like and feel like?
I think the future-looking part is really important, and I think that when you guys, if you take anything away from this broadcast, I think, and if I take anything away from watching my friends and a lot of successful authors over the past few months, things change in this business so quickly. And just like anything else, you have to decide if you want to be here for the long haul. Like, there's going to be ups and downs that are industry-wide, and there's going to be personal successes that you cannot always predict, but that you hopefully can ride as long as they'll let you. And then you have to kind of figure out what the next thing is. And a huge part of that is a long-range plan. I think it's really easy to just focus on the next release or even the next year. But what you're saying is that it's really much more powerful to extrapolate and then work backwards. And I think that's critical to think about.
Well, and you get so much faster, because a lot of times people say, well, in 5 years I want to have 10 books out and be making 6 figures. You can do that in 6 months if you plan backward from that.
Right.
Well, and that's a trick too, that if you've ever worked with a financial planner or retirement planner, they do this. Like, you sit down, like if you work with a retirement planner, you map out, they want to know exactly what kind of car you want, like what countries you want to visit in retirement, like, and you get really detailed in that because there's power in that. Like, it's very powerful to sit and, because sometimes it's just a cold ass reality check, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to save $3 million in the next 6 years to retire the way I want. But
yep.
And I also think the timeline is important, because I've been hearing from a lot of people that they're feeling really burnt out. This past year has seen a lot of success for people who can publish really quickly, and people who thought they were publishing quickly before this year feel like they still haven't managed to keep up. So I think that looking at a 5-year plan, and Janet, you can definitely agree or disagree with this, if you don't want to be doing this in 5 years, whether it's at this exact pace or not, then you might want to really look hard about whether or not you even want to be doing it for 5 more minutes, because I don't think that for most of us this is a get-rich-quick scheme. We all are usually doing this because we love it, but I think looking at that long-range plan is really a good way to test your mettle for hanging in there.
I think you need, 5 years honestly is not that far away. But I
No.
will tell you that it is in this world, in this publishing world.
Yes.
And it's good to know where you want to be in 5 years, but I'm telling you, you can get there faster if you want. But yes, I mean, passion doesn't pay the bills, but it certainly keeps you going. You know what I'm saying? And you've got to want it more than everyone else. You've got to want it more than anything.
Twitter's all over this.
You've got to want it more than anything. You've got to want it more than you're afraid of it.
Twitter's all over this dreaming business, by the way. ST says she wants to be an action figure. Authors can be those, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, yes. You can totally be that. The Great Idris says she wants to be the next Sylvia Day. Tracy Roberts says she wants to be able to write full-time in 2 years, traveling the U.S. in her RV with her husband driving because he volunteered.
There we go. Now we're getting
awesome.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They're getting all over it.
And Sylvia Day was one of our keynote speakers this past June at our last UtopiaCon. And wow, talk about someone who's extremely specific.
Yes.
And who makes absolutely no apologies for what she wants and is one of the smartest businesswomen out there when it comes to managing her writing career. Wow. If you want to be her, follow everything she does. I mean, literally, like, just stalk her.
Well, and her advice was incredible because she really got down to the nitty-gritty, and I think what I took away from her keynote more than anything else was the fact that it is the long range that matters. Like, in this business, we can be so quick to want to sign on with agents or editors or publishers because it seems like such a great first opportunity, but it's not always the best opportunity. And when you jump into business with people, you're jumping into a long-term partnership. So you want to be really clear, and a big part of that, I think, is having that confidence to really, like, put your dreams on the line and say, this isn't good enough for me.
Well, yeah, if it's not,
I want to hold out.
It doesn't have to be a long-term partnership if it's not working out. I mean, again, I think women have a lot of trouble with cutting ties. They feel obligated to stick it out with that person or whatever, and there's a loyalty factor there. The thing is, men would say it's only business, it's not personal. I would say you got to take it personal, but you've got to get really clear about what you want and don't make apologies for it. Be really clear. Here, if you're really clear about what you expect from a relationship, whether it's a business or a personal one, set the expectations up front. Here's what I expect. Here's what I want, and here's what I deserve. If I don't get it, contract null and void. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's not about being a hard ass. It's about you've got to set your expectations from the beginning, from the very beginning.
Well, and I sat with a few people who really took heart to that speech because these were people who had met agents, who had signed contracts with agents, and then were involved in agent relationships that they felt like were not really servicing them, and they were exactly where you're talking about, sort of afraid to end it and be on their own, like any other relationship. And Sylvia Day's discussion about, how hard that was for her with her first agent, how she finally got away from them, resonated with so many people because they hadn't been specific. Their dream had been, I want an agent, and what they took away from that was like, no, I want the right agent who believes in my body of work, who wants, the same things for me that I do, who's not simply looking to represent one book.
Which goes right
round
to that manifesto piece, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
You know what you believe in, and you know what you want, and you know why you want it, and you know specifically why you want it, then that should be easy, right? It should all start falling into place.
Because you are being specific and you are thinking it through.
Then it should be easier to find one.
I had a question for Janet. So, do you find working with authors or writers that I feel like we get as a lot, we get kind of antsy when you start talking about specifics because I just personally I feel like
it's not just authors. Trust me, it's creative entrepreneurs. I'm telling you,
the perception like in publishing, your concerned authors are like, who knows? I'm going to put the book out. Sometimes they get great reviews, sometimes they don't. Blah blah blah. That feels like a hurdle in my mind, like that to be that specific in the industry that doesn't always support you being like real, like.
Look, you don't have to. It helps to have a long-term plan, but When I'm talking about specifics, if you're just starting out in this and all you know right now in your heart is that you just want to write and finish a book and have it published for the very first time, that is pretty specific. But if you know by when you'd like to do that, that's even better. And you can't stop there. Once you've done that, then okay, now what do I want? What's the next thing? And you need to start, and then once you start accomplishing that and start getting comfortable in that skin, you've got to start dreaming bigger, but those dreams need to be specific. And I'll tell you, I hear what you're saying, and it's not just authors that get antsy when I tell them that they've got to start being more specific. Because the thing is, in your heart of hearts, you know what you want. You know that you want what kind of car you love, and you know what kind of house you want to live in, and you know what you want. You're just not saying it. You've got to claim it. And the other thing is, they're all creative. All creative people feel stifled. And and another one of the steps that we're going to talk about, if we have time, is, creating a good relationship with time and understanding how to manage and budget and structure your time. And wow, when I start talking about that stuff, man, do you see the palm sweat when it comes to the creatives in the room. They all just start looking around and pulling on their collars and like, that's the whole reason why I work for myself. That's the whole reason I'm a writer, and that's the whole reason. But I want you to look at the people out there who you admire. I don't care if it's Chris Rock or Oprah or Madonna or Sylvia Day, or look at what they do and how they manage their business and their career, and they are specific, they expect it, and they take action. I mean, they do all of these things.
Well, let's talk about time, because that's one of our questions. Where's the distinction between dream planning and daydreaming / wasting time? It can be, you can fill your days up with things that don't move you forward. So how do you recommend handling that?
Oh gosh, well, I said this on the last time I was on your show.
I don't think we can hear it enough.
Right, perfectionism and procrastination are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is fear. Okay, you know which one of those you fall on. It's got to be perfect before I can release it, or I just have to clean the house, or I just got to do this, or I'll get to it. I will. It's definitely important to me, but I've got to do this thing first. That is all fear. Okay, and you've got to let that go. Done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. Madonna is not the perfect singer. Oh my God, no. But she's the queen of pop. So you've got to understand the relationship between time and energy, right? Really, people say I don't have enough time for it, but really it's about energy. When it's something you really love, it's amazing what you can find the energy to do. I say all the time, I don't have time to write. No, it's just that writing hasn't taken priority. What clearly is what I love is helping people build their dreams.
Yeah.
That's what I love. That's really what lights me up. I mean, I'll work into the, burning the midnight oil. People say, well, God, I've got kids and this and that. Jacinda Wilder has 5 flipping kids and almost lost the house, and yet she found time to write. So don't tell me you don't have time to write.
Right. I'm amazed there's so many moms that like homeschool and they're best-selling authors. Like Lila Felix and Rachel Harris and all these. I'm like, okay, if they have time to write, then my kids are in school. Like, I should be able to get this.
Right. So really, you've got to honor that relationship with time. If you notice that you're the person who's always late, really start paying attention to the patterns. Are you someone who's always late? Are people always waiting on you? Or do you show up 15 minutes early? Are you, really start paying attention to the patterns and things. But, and when I sit down and when I work with clients, I make them, at the beginning of our work together, I make them extremely structured with their calendar. Extremely. But once it starts becoming habit, habit, it becomes second, it's almost like muscle memory after a while. It's just like with when you first start an exercise routine. You've got to set the alarm and you got to get your ass out of the bed and go do it, right? But then after a while, it becomes part of the routine. It becomes part of who you are, and you can't imagine not doing it. So at the very beginning, I tell people to get really structured, but really honor time. time is on your side, and you have to understand. If you start recognizing the way you think about time, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy. If you start shifting those sentences to "there's plenty of time for what I find important in my life," and really, you can almost immediately sense the shift from anxiety to an exhale of and having enough time to do it.
Yeah, there's a couple. One of the things that I always find is that when I'm messing around, like time flies by in a non-productive way, and all of a sudden I'll realize I've been on Facebook for 35 minutes. But when I'm actually writing and when I'm really in it, I'm amazed at how much I can actually get done in an hour. And I totally feel it's like when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, time turns like in your favor, if that makes sense. And I try to remember that when I get into that headspace of like, I don't have time. And then I also think of that, that parable where they talk about the big rocks in the jar. Like if you fill the jar with small rocks, you never have room for the big rocks. But if you put the big rocks in, then all the small ones seem to settle into place. And I try to hold on to that one too.
Absolutely, that's a good one.
It's a big one. I don't know why it's like so simple and so true. It's like a nursery school experiment that pays off long term.
Well, EJ, I think that's a powerful, like, the idea of when people break it down and you think about, basically if you really map out, like, how you spend your day, like, how you allot your time during the day. And if you put that, what Janet just said on that, if you just put that phrasing on it of this is what's important to you, that would freak most people out. Because like you said, like you're like, is Facebook really that important to me? Is, Netflix really that big of a deal to me? Like that I spend so many hours folding my socks or whatever it is that you spend hours a day doing.
And really what you have to shift the mindset of is those things are not punishments, okay? They can be rewards. So just shift it from oh, well, now she's making, I can't go on Facebook, then everybody wants to rebel, right? Well, I can't go on Facebook now, I can't, I'm not saying you can't do any of those things, but you schedule it in, and you reward yourself for working for 20 minutes, and we do this thing in the group called chunking it down, where we're not telling you you've got to write for 5 hours straight if that's not who you are. Write for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, build up the muscles. And if it's not the writing you have a problem with, but maybe it's the marketing pieces, then build up the muscles for that. If you don't like the marketing pieces, then only work on it for 20 minutes, and then reward yourself, and then and then schedule another time to do it. It's about building it up and flipping your mindset toward it. So if you feel like, what we don't want is for you to feel like something's being kept from you, like it's a punishment. You've got to really understand that it's really a reward system, and really that everything that you're setting up everything to, keep your eyes on the prize, basically.
I know Alicia Cat Vansel, who's one of our, she's really good at that. She's really good at, taking her time for her writing or her design work, and then finishing up with 5 or 10 minutes on Facebook, and then going right back to the important work. She doesn't get lost in the sideline, for lack of a better word. So I guess that's muscle memory too.
Amalia Dillon from Twitter just had a nice tweet a while ago. She said writing is definitely a moving goalpost kind of life.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's very true. So it sounds like when you start working with people, you really think the step to dream planning is time planning. Is that true?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, I think there's a lot of inner work that has to go on. I mean, really, this, making peace with your desires that's an inner piece. That's an inner piece. There's a lot of mindset pieces before the practical pieces can even work. So the reason I created the that stand-up indies course is because we do the Monday mindset stuff where we're working on all the mindset pieces, and then on the second class of that week we do all of the business and marketing pieces. And the reason I created that class was because the marketing doesn't work if the crap in your brain isn't right. You know what I mean? If you don't have the right mindset about what it is you're doing, if you have a crappy relationship with money, you're never going to build your wealth consciousness, and you're going to have a really hard time building your wealth at all. Okay? If you don't have a good relationship with time, it's going to make it a lot harder to achieve the goals in the time frame that you've set for yourself. Okay? So there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, I think there's equal parts mindset and equal parts, or heart set, if you will, and there's equal parts action and business and marketing.
So if somebody wanted to take this discussion tonight and take a couple baby steps in the next week or so to get themselves on track, are you going to be offering the Stand Up Indies course at all again? That's a
at the beginning of 2015, I'll offer it again.
Awesome. This is a class that I got to take with Janet after we talked last year, and it was so critical to be able to tie those pieces together, because what I found that happens when you really line up the mindset with the heart set and the marketing, then it becomes a lot easier to figure out what to put on Twitter, and it becomes a lot easier to spend the time on the writing, and it becomes a lot easier to break it down and go, I feel really good about both parts of this, and I'm going to show it to the world. Mm-hmm. I think that's really breaking it down very simply, but if she offers it again, I definitely recommend it. But before that happens, people really want to go into 2015 with, some clear ideas of identifying their passions to carry them through next year and to kick it off with a bang. What are the first 2 or 3 things you would recommend them doing in the next couple weeks?
Write down specifically what you want.
Okay. Write down what your goals are.
You want it.
So would you do that list like just 1, 2, 3, like 1 being most important? Like, do you have, or just start like free thinking and just write it all down?
Don't overthink it. Just do what you're feeling. I'm telling you, these are the steps you're going to want to do. You're going to need to write down what you want specifically. You're going to need to write down by when do you want it. You're going to need to write down why you want it. Because that why is what's going to light the fire when things look rough. Why do you want it? It's because I've got to pay for my mother's cancer treatments. I've got to put my kids through college. I want to drive an Aston Martin and jet set around the world with sexy ladies all day, every day. I mean, those are the things that are going to make you get out of bed every day. Okay? So those are my top 3 things.
You just filled my list out for me.
So, Janet, how do you recommend people stay positive when, some of those goals, like let's say it's May, and maybe you haven't met all those goals despite your best intentions, your best, writing them down. How do you stay positive, and how do you create an organic plan that has room for growth, for contraction, as who was it that just said, like, the moving goalpost? How do you include that necessity without feeling like it's failure, and with enough room to keep moving?
Remember, failure is not the opposite of success. Just like hot and cold are just varying degrees of temperature on the spectrum of temperature, failure and success are varying degrees on the same spectrum, okay? You've got to give yourself permission to fail. You have to absolutely do that. You've got to take risks, and you've got to believe that you are worth it. That you're absolutely. Here's the thing. You only get one draft of your life. There's no rewrites, there's no edits. Every mistake you have to own and claim. And you want to make the one and only story of your life matter, right? Because you're only here for a certain amount of time. And so if you say, well, I'll do it next year or 3 years from now or 10 years from now, man, do it now. Why? What are you waiting on? Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. Give yourself permission. And as far as keeping excited and keeping positive about it, those are some self-care pieces. What is it you're doing? How are you eating? What are you putting into your body? And that includes food, drink, media, television, books, all of that stuff. All of that stuff matters. What are you putting into your body and mind? What are you feeding your spirit? Do you do meditation? Do you pray? Do you journal? Do you walk outdoors outside, get outdoors? Do you go get mani-pedis? Do you get massages? Do you work with a pastor? Do you hang out with friends enough? What are you doing to spiritually nourish yourself? Those are the things that are going to help you stay positive. Writing is a very solitary action, and that's why I think we crave, conferences like Utopia or whatever. We crave that tribal experience. We need that support in those, where are my people, I think that's important to remember. So you really got to take care of you and believe you deserve it.
And I think that's really hard for authors when you're trying to marry the realities of family. It's hard for anyone, really, to marry the realities of family and what you have to do with what you want to be doing, and then fitting in the things that keep you sane and make you yourself. I mean, I used to see 4 or 5 movies a weekend because it was my job, and that was a huge part of who I was and my conversation with life and people. And I definitely explored. I saw the world through cinema and vice versa. And I think I've only seen like 4 movies this year. And sometimes my husband will ask me, or he'll come up with an actor before me, and he'll kind of look at me and be like, "Oh my God, who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a person who now has 2 kids and a husband and a couple businesses to run, and I just don't have as much time for movies as I used to." And I probably turn the TV on once a week. I don't miss the TV, but when I do sit down to watch a movie, I'm constantly reminded how much that rejuvenates me. And it sounds kind of crazy, but, it's important, and it is a huge part of me, and it's definitely something I've let go. So it's one of my goals for next year to make more time for those kinds of things, even if it's not always obvious how they're going to help me get to that deadline. They really do.
Yeah. I think knowing what drains you and knowing what energizes you is really important, because it's really different between, if introverts and extroverts have completely different lists when it comes to what drains them and what gives them energy, So, yeah, you really got to know that and really honor it. You really got to tap into that.
Yeah, and I also know the same, staying away from my stories too long drains me. So it's a combination.
And when your most productive time of day is, it's not always the ideal situation, especially when you're starting out, especially when you have kids. I don't think, I would venture to say that maybe half the people who write at 4 in the morning because they have to, actually, that's probably not really their most productive and ideal time of day to produce and create, right? But when you actually know when you're the most productive and you're able to work during that time, that you've got to grab the bull by the horns and try to make that the time that you use for your creativity.
And that's so hard. How do you figure that out? Like, how do you actually drill down without, hitting it by accident?
I think, well, yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have, you'd be surprised, but it actually has very little to do with whether or not you're a morning person or a night owl. It really does. Because I know a lot of people who are night owls who actually don't get a lot of creative and productive stuff done. And I know a lot of morning people, the same thing. But, 9 times out of 10, just play with it and see what happens. I think it's the same thing that goes with, I'll use the example of starting an exercise routine. Some people start they'll try exercising at 5 a.m. before they have to go to work or whatever. And they absolutely love it, and they thrive in that environment, and it sets the tone. They have this endorphin high before they go to work, and it's great. And I know other people who would rather, pull their eyelashes out one by one than get up that early. But I tell you, after lunch, there's a lot of people who'd rather sleep, but these same people who don't get up in the morning would rather go to the gym after lunch.
Right.
It's really, and it's kind of the same thing when we're talking about the creative. It's like really kind of know your body and really start listening to your body and stuff like that. But there's a lot, this dream planning, it's a lot, but it's exciting. And once you start, we don't have to know everything tonight. I mean, there is a lot to do and a lot to put in place. But once you start somewhere, and this is what I used to tell people when I really coach them just in social media. People would get so overwhelmed by all the different apps and all the different social sites out there. I'm like, just start with one. You don't have to be everywhere.
Right.
Start with one, get comfortable, and then start adding to that.
Well, and that works. I can tell you for a fact, Evan discovered Instagram last week.
Oh, I bet he loves it. It's perfect for a visual person like Evan. I bet he loves it.
My husband's a photographer, which I know a lot of you guys know, and he's got amazing pictures that are all over the planet, and other people are always like tweeting them and doing things, but he hasn't really done much of that himself. And last week he realized if he puts pictures on Instagram, within 5 minutes, a whole bunch of people will tell him how awesome his pictures are. Mm-hmm. And he does get a lot of great feedback, but like writers, a lot of what he does is kind of solitary and in the room or in his digital dark room, and it's been one of those like refreshing things to see, like, oh yes, he didn't have to go the entire social platform. He picked one thing, and now he's actually enjoying it, whereas before it just seemed like this overwhelming chore that he was just ignoring.
Jim loves Instagram too, so I totally get why Evan loves it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say two more. There's two more points I'd like to make with this dream planning piece.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm probably going to say them out of order, but what I was going to say is gratitude. You've got to be grateful and always count your blessings. I think that's another piece of adding into that, how do you stay positive, is by staying grateful. You'd really be surprised by the baggage that people carry around about this specific topic. Some people harbor secret guilt and shame or mistrust of graciousness and thanks. And
wow. It's interesting. How come, do you think?
They don't like getting, if someone tells it, they don't take compliments well.
Okay, so I hear that.
They'll deflect. There's a lot of deflection there. They don't believe that they're worth it. Counting blessings actually puts people in anxiety and overwhelms them sometimes. But when you start really counting your blessings, you really start to surrender to the process. You start to trust the process a lot more, and you see that the universe has your back.
Yeah.
And part of gratitude is also paying it forward. And I will tell you, the writing community is amazeballs at the paying it forward piece. This community is so unbelievably generous with giveaways and swag and advice and help and encouragement, or maybe it's just the people that I see, but I'm telling you that this tribe has got that in spades.
I see it too. I'm always so amazed and impressed and grateful.
Yeah, but if you make this one simple mindset adjustment and practice gratitude every day, maybe it's a gratitude journal at night before you go to bed, what is the 10 things that you're most grateful for today, or once a week, or whatever it is. Really, Gratitude Tuesday is the thing I do on the Social Deviants Facebook page, and I say, here's what I'm grateful for today. Every night before I put my son to bed, I say, what was your favorite thing about today? And what are you grateful for today? So that he's always going to sleep with that appreciation of what he's got, and it helps you really, one, it puts everything in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in this time of year when it can get out of hand with the materialism, right? So when you really start to surrender to that gratitude piece, you can skyrocket the amount of abundance you'll have in your life.
And that is the word practice doesn't even begin to describe the gratitude piece. I mean, I was raised with religion, but I was never raised like praying before meals necessarily, or saying prayers before bed, and listing all the things that you're thankful for. And my friends who were, it's one of those things you're kind of like, my parents were awesome, but I'm a little bit jealous that they were raised with like that kind of ongoing dialogue. I've worked pretty hard to develop that as an adult, and I'm trying to explain it to my kids and give them demonstrations on a daily basis and helping them to develop that language in their lives. But just making that little shift of like listing a couple things in your head before bed, and waking up and being like, God, I'm so grateful to be up today. Like, some people didn't make it through the night, but I did, and thank you. It's so simple and it's so huge, but it's a practice because it sounds kind of weird if you've never done it before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one, and what's the next one?
Well, honestly, I sort of lost track of my focus, but I will end with this: just don't ever give up. Don't ever, ever give up. Invest in you and believe in you because, oh, I know, I remember now what I was going to say, but I'll just add that one on. I'm telling you, if you can, you would be surprised that sometimes you're only 1 millimeter off from success, like one flipping millimeter. And this is where we separate the wheat from the chaff, right? Some people will quit when they're up against that last hurdle, and other people will just keep going. So don't give up. If you want it bad enough, do not give up.
And I think when it comes to writing, I think we had Holly H.M. Ward on here, and she was amazing, and she said something like, the only bad book is one that's not finished.
Yeah.
Jennifer Armentrout said the same thing. So, sometimes it's not giving up career-wise, and sometimes it's not giving up with, like, the word count and, the edits and all that stuff. But it's, the things that you've set aside because they just got too hard, you just never know where they could land if they finish them. Of course, I'm talking to myself right now.
No, I hear you. But the other thing I was going to say, though, is really don't compare yourself to other people.
No, I just found that advice from them, like, coming from people who have really pulled it off. It's so simple, and you're like, wow, that's really powerful coming from, if they're feeling that way, like, they're right, and I'm going to listen.
Right. No, my last point is don't compare yourself to other people. That's my last point.
Okay, that's a good one.
Don't compare yourself to other people.
And that's I think that's, in just of all these chats, and you see what people tweet out and such, I think that's one of the most difficult things for writers to do.
Yeah.
It's so hard to put yourself in your own ecosystem, in your own bubble, and kind of block out.
And musicians and artists, I'm telling you, whatever, every industry, filmmakers, they all compare themselves. It's hard not to because we live in a society that does that. But if you remember when you were in school and you were taught to compare versus contrast, the difference between and contrast. If you look up the definition of contrast, it means to differ strikingly. If you quit worrying about what everyone else is doing and focus on you, you would be amazed at how strikingly different you really are. And here's the thing. There's only one you in the history of the universe, forever. That's it. Only one. Only one. And that's incredible and mind-boggling and like freaking Neil deGrasse Tyson cosmos type shit. Like that's some heavy stuff to think about. Like in the history of anything that will ever be, there's only me for maybe 80 years. That's it.
Unless you're like a twin, then it's like 1.5 of you out there. But
no, still no. There's still
I agree.
It's still not the same circumstances and the same growth and the same opportunities, even if it's almost identical.
Right.
I love you too, ST. But I think that's sometimes you gotta get kind of psychic and crazy about it and live into that universal space of, man, this is it. There's only one me in the history of ever. This is it. This is my chance. So if you're worried about what other people are doing, you're not concentrating on what you're put on this freaking planet to do. And if you're like me, I believe there's a reason that everyone has the gifts that we have, and it's because other people need them, not because we need them. We don't need our own damn gifts. We're given our gifts because other people need them right now, right this second. So for you to not deliver your gifts, that to me is the only disappointment, really.
And getting out there, like, spiritually speaking and psychologically speaking and psychically speaking, that's all what's nice about. Like, because next week we're going to get into more of, like, the nuts and bolts of, publishing practicalities and all that kind of good stuff. But, man, this is so much, to me, it's a mind game. Like, you've got to get your head in the right space to succeed at this.
You do.
And that's true, as you point out over and over tonight, Jana. I mean, I think that applies to all kinds of things in life. But I think we sometimes neglect that in publishing. We forget that mental aspect of it. But
yeah, no, it's important because, and I think I have a lot of clients. You get that tunnel vision of, well, my audience this and my rank that and my numbers this and da 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 da. And I'm like, take a breath. Let's breathe in. Breathe out. All right. Let's stay present for a second. Let's get to the heart of what's going on here. What are you worried about? Why are you worried about it? When we really start let's keep our eyes on the prize. What do we want? When do we want it? Why do we want it? I'm telling you, those everyday things where you're like, my rank, my this, I don't know where to find my audience. Calm. We got this. You got this. You got this. You got this. And we do nuts and bolts pieces in the stand-up Indies course we do. That's why we do the Monday Mindset, and we do the brand and marketing pieces on a second day. There's 2 classes a week. But anyway, not important. But that's the reason we do it, because you can't have one without the other. The YMCA, their whole thing is mind, body, spirit, right? Because you really have to nurture each point on that triad. So really get the mind pieces, the spiritual pieces in place, and the action pieces, the physical stuff, becomes a lot easier to handle and a lot easier to find that balance. Speaking of balance is an illusion when you're building a business, okay? So you're going to be unbalanced, and that's okay. And honestly, if I start to get too comfortable and everything starts to feel a little too balanced, I know that I'm not pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Okay, so don't worry about that balance piece too much, but make sure you're attending to each part of you.
So a little bit at a time, instead of dropping. It sounds like you're talking about like not worrying about everything having equal attention, but giving the things that are important to you a teeny bit of attention, even if you're giving some other things a lot more at any given time.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes you're under deadline and you're sitting at a computer for 14 hours because you really got to crank that stuff out, and then you stand up and you've got a crick in your neck and you can barely see because your eyes are crossing, and you really got to honor that physical side of you too. What can I do? Can I go for a walk, a 10-minute walk, and break up the day? Can I celebrate the fact that I just wrote 25,000 words by having a 5-minute dance party in my office? Reward yourself, and those are spiritual pieces too, aren't they? And so when you make all of it part of your, shit, we get to do this for a living? Are you kidding? This is amazing. Like, what? Come on, that's so flippin' cool.
Yeah, people are paying any amount of money to talk to the characters that live in our heads.
Yeah, like this is the gift I was given. Kick ass. Celebrate that. Celebrate all of it. And again, I tell everyone in the class, celebrate the small stuff just as much as you celebrate the big stuff, because that's going to be the other thing that keeps you positive and keeps you going.
Actually, I think that's hard to. That's something that I think, as far as tips and tricks go, what are some small things that are really worth celebrating? Because actually naming those things, I think, is hard for some people. I love the dance party in your living room for 5 minutes, but there are a lot of little celebrations on the way to, first steps and successes, and I think we lose sight of them. So what are the ones that you've heard about?
There are some days when getting out of bed is cause for celebration.
It's true.
Oh my God, coffee, I love you. There's definitely days like that. But as far as like when you're accomplishing stuff, everyone sets their own rewards usually. Some people it's chocolate, some people it's okay, then I can take the afternoon off. For other people it's okay, then I can buy those shoes that I really want. Buying shoes is a self-care piece too, and that can be a reward piece. And it's also a brand and a visibility and a living into that vision that you have of yourself. That's a whole wealth consciousness piece, but you've got to be okay with spending the money and investing in you.
Well, I know it's shoes for you. I've seen your Galaxy shoes. I'm really excited to see your time travel shoes.
Yeah, certainly, but I mean, for other people, it's other stuff.
Yeah.
But I would just say that find the thing, and you're worth the investment. We didn't have any problem spending thousands, tens of thousands, for some people, hundreds of thousands of dollars on college.
Right.
Where'd that get all of us? Well, some of us we did okay, but for the rest of us, it's like, well, I've got a degree sitting on my wall, but now what? You know what I mean? So you've got to be willing to invest in you. You have to be willing to invest in you. Whether that means you get more education, whether that means you get coaching, whether that means you go to a conference, whether that means you buy the shoes or get the massage or go out to dinner or whatever it is, you're worth it. You are worth it. And start keeping track of the stuff that you can write off as a writer. There is tax times coming up, not too far away. Yuck. But start writing some of that stuff off. Your cell phone, your computer, your internet service, all that stuff.
I always say that taxes are not a problem if you're not making money, so that's a little piece of gratitude that I've figured out. It's still a pain, but it's good advice. Keep track of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 4 minutes left. I think all of our Twitter people are doing running high fives. And I wanted to thank you so much for coming on tonight. We've got a lot of people in the audience who are coming to Utopia for the first time this year, including EJ.
Yay!
Rock on.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give away a ticket to Utopia, but you guys got to run the giveaway.
Oh dear.
But if there's any questions, I'll answer questions too if anybody has any questions. But yeah, you're welcome. I'd love coming on. You know me, I get all fired up when I talk about this stuff.
We get fired up listening, and we get fired up having you. And I think that, you know, as I mentioned to you when we first started talking about this, I know that I've heard from a lot of people in our community that this year has been like, it's like
it's been a tough year.
Yeah, the beginning of the year was awesome for so many people who have been in this game a long time, and you know, new people and people who were like in the six-figure club. And then the second half of this year was like, what just happened in my world? So
you know, there's a lot of. Here's the thing: the distribution systems are always gonna change. It happened to the music. It happened to movies. If KDP Select is gonna stick and it's gonna cut into the revenue, we've got to find it's on us to figure out other streams of revenue.
And how to use that one, because I think people are starting to figure out how to incorporate it into their marketing plans the same way people had to figure out how to incorporate HBO into their marketing plans. You know, once it sticks, you just have to figure out how to make it work for you.
Yep, exactly.
But any final words of wisdom before we say goodnight and thank you very much? You know, if you had like one big advice hug to give everybody to take away with them, what would it be?
Well, I mean, it's just the same stuff that you're worth it and you can do it. And there's not a person out there, I believe. The universe is on your side. We live in a universe that caters to abundance and to positivity and to being the best you can be. You know, I mean, it really is there it has your back. The universe has your back. And, you know, just surround yourself with the most excellent people you can and show up every day and believe that you're worth it.
I love that. Surround yourself with the most excellent people you can is also really good advice, and one of the reasons we keep doing this every week, because we love being surrounded by you guys, and we know that it just brings us all to a higher level in every way.
Yeah. Don't wait. Grab the bull by the horns. All those cliches. Make them own them.
There's a reason they exist, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we're getting like all the love for you from Twitter, and I definitely hope you'll get a chance to peek at some of the comments after this, and we'll make sure to tweet out the links and broadcast links, because this chat will be up indefinitely, but I know it's going to bring, you know, it's awesome because it's a lot of what I think people needed to hear to like relight that fire. And we all want to keep the
join us at Utopia, because I'm telling you, it's part spiritual motivational seminar and part practical application when it comes to publishing and writing. So let's do this.
It totally is. And I always get to sit near all the new people who start crying for the first time and look at me and they're like, why am I crying? I'm like, because it's Utopia and it matters.
Yeah. Ugly tears are welcome.
I'm totally
crying. Totally awesome. I'm always like, yay, you're totally in the club now.
Thank you guys for having me. This was so much fun. And you know, Amy, I love you. Everyone have wonderful, safe, happy holidays. No texting and driving.
Yeah, right. I love the XT campaign, actually. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janet Wallace. Thank you, EJ Wesley. Thank you, ST Bende and Alicia Capansel and Chris Fox, who are out there making the chat work all the time. Oh, and Lindsay, I just got something from you. So, Lindsay Lewis, if you guys haven't met her, she's a little bit new to our chat team, just the last quarter of this year, but we love having her on board. Thank you to everyone who's been tweeting and listening tonight, and we just hope that these words have helped. We hope that this helps continue your fire, that makes you write a little harder, think a little more, and really figure out what's in your heart so you can keep going happily. This is all of us from NA Lit Chat saying good night. We will talk next week. I believe we have Heather Hildenbrand coming on. She's going to get more into the nuts and bolts of planning out your writing and your marketing schemes. And
she's awesome.
She's amazing. she's really great at putting together all the specifics on that, and we're excited to take our dreams and make them, practical plans. So we will see you guys here at the same time next week. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.
Sure.
Right.